China is using advanced technology to spy on its citizens and biometrically measure the physical aspects of its school children, and it's even worse than it sounds. See, a simple virus doesn't seem so bad when weighed against the full weight of communism. I wish the Democrats understood that. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today we're looking at the future of public school classrooms, what's going to happen as the invasion of privacy and total control of students is tested and perfected in communist China. And this could only happen in a place like China or North Korea. The utterly repressive nature of this, what they're doing to their citizens, and especially to their children, there's no words to start this off until you take a look at this.
Meanwhile, some schools offer glimpses of what the future of high-tech education in the country might look like. Good job! Classrooms have robots that analyze students' health and engagement levels. Students wear uniforms with chips that track their locations. There are even surveillance cameras that monitor how often students check their phones or yawn during classes.
Yeah, so yawning during class now gets you recorded. And that's a report actually done by the Wall Street Journal. And it's not new. It was done several months ago. But, you know, we're in America and we see videos and things all the time and we don't pay attention. And so we just think, okay, fine, move on. And now when you finally see it and you look and see what is happening in the world today and what's happening, especially in China, and how it's going to impact us here in America, it is happening.
Well, given what we know about China's tactics, this is not innocent, right?
Correct.
The kids who yawn, the kids who can't focus, the ones who are easily distracted, they're going to be siphoned off into low-level careers if careers at all, right? This is not done to improve the student. This is done for the state to figure out which students are worthy of what, how to proceed in determining what the fate of that child is going to be in terms of its entire life, work, how they participate, these social credit scores they've got going on. And people say to me all the time, we've talked about Bill Gates a lot on the show over the last few weeks because, again, he's now going to partner with Andrew Cuomo, the failed governor of New York, most deaths of any state, and Bill Gates, who gave us Common Core, completely failed curriculum, pedagogy, world standards, right? These two are joining forces to reimagine education in America. And people ask me all the time, what is Bill Gates' interest in this? Mm-hmm. It's not math and science. It's this technology, this technocratic utopia that Bill Gates and many liberal progressives are dreaming of, right? Where every move, you think about what's happened, how unremarkable it is now all throughout Europe, particularly in England, these CCT cameras, right? Mm-hmm. Everywhere you go, every street corner, everything is monitored. And while sure, if somebody commits a crime, it's nice to have it. But now you can find out, is my husband cheating, right? Where is the level of the big brother spy system is already out of control. And to the surprise of nobody, it's scary that American secular progressives see what China's doing as a model, not as a warning.
Well, and this started long time ago. I mean, we've been just slowly but surely coddled and kind of massaged into, okay, give me another camera. That's okay. The privacy, they're not invading anything. They're not invading anything. And then now we're at a point where your minds almost are being read and everything you do is stored somewhere, and the government is getting the data on you. And we're so far down the rabbit hole on this one that people are just like, okay. It's just like another tactic for them. Okay, we'll let the government kind of do that. They've completely lost what it means to have privacy.
And what's scary is that in China, there's no choice. If you watch the full video, you will see that there are some of the parents who are against this have to be very careful of what they say. Don't think for 1 second if you're a Chinese dad and they're doing this to your kid, you better keep your mouth shut. In fact, they're sending some of this data to the parents as well. And I think the implication is that they're telling the parents, fix it, right? Fix it or we will. And so this whole thing is a top-down, completely statist reimagining of what education is. It's very frustrating. It's very frightening. And what, as you pointed out, what's dangerous is the American attitude now, right? We don't have cameras on every street corner, right? We haven't gotten there yet. There have been fighting. We have actually managed to fight off in some communities these camera speed traps. I mean, which was also a big victory, right? A lot of places have these remote cameras hanging up above the highways, and you're just driving too fast, you're nailed. You get a faceless ticket in the mail. A lot of states and a lot of communities have fought that. I hope the American spirit continues to fight this. We have warned, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in the second segment. We've been warning from the very first day of Common Core that a component of Common Core was biometrics, right? Very crude compared to what the Chinese are doing now. But there's so many angles to this story, right? How often you yawn, how often you check your phone, how often, and they're at the point now where it goes right directly to the teacher. And that tells you another thing. What are teachers doing? When the teacher's primary job is to monitor all this data that's flooding to her immediately. And the data has really nothing to do with what you know. And so the teachers are effectively technocrat facilitators for all of this. Really is kind of creepy.
They really are just going to be button pushers then, because they can click on the different thing to look at the different student. Where's the teaching being done? It's more of, as we know, the indoctrination and the focus on it. And as we'll talk about in the next segment, what that actually looks like in a classroom for a group of just average kids who just probably, if left to their own devices, would just enjoy learning. But that's not what's allowed.
This is the death of the individual that 1984 Orwell wrote about,
yes,
that they warned you about in some of the great dystopian novels of the 20th century. This is Nurse Ratched and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This is Brave New World and Aldous Huxley. And what all these things have in common is that it is the death of the individual liberty and individualism at the stake of technocratic communism. And so we are returning to our conversation about what's going on in China, how technology, this is a whole new level of stuff now, how sophisticated the technology is that the Chinese government is using to monitor almost every aspect of your kids' physical well-being, their attitudes, their emotions. This is, make no doubt about it, this is communal peer pressure to force kids to become the same. There will be no deviance, there will be no difference, there will be no, oh, you don't like math so you didn't pay attention and you really liked it when we were reading and you paid, no. This is going to be literally one-size-fits-all education carried to the most ridiculous extremes. Again, take a look at this haunting video.
For this 5th grade class, the day begins with putting on a brain wave sensing gadget. Students then practice meditating.
现在想象我们眉心有一点柔和的光芒绽放。
The device is made in China and has 3 electrodes, 2 behind the ears and 1 on the forehead. These sensors pick up electrical signals sent by neurons in the brain. The neural data is then sent in real time to the teacher's computer. So while students are solving math problems, a teacher can quickly find out who's paying attention and who's not.
说明这段时间他是有点在那走神的。
A report is then generated that shows how well the class was paying attention. It even details each student's concentration level at 10-minute intervals. It's then sent to a chat group for parents.
就是他可以看到每个人的评分。
That is chilling. And going all the way back to the beginning of that video, it's like they bring them in, they herd them in together. They all sit down together. They all close their eyes together. There's no individualism. The only speck of individualism I saw in that video was when the little girl tried to raise her hand to answer the question. And I'm guessing it's because that device on her head, it'll show that she's engaged. So it's not even because maybe that she wants the thrill of, oh, I know it, I'm excited about it. It's, I need the data in my head because otherwise I'll get in trouble.
I noticed that too. She seemed disappointed when she...
It was like
the only genuine emotion
yeah.
you saw was that she was frustrated she wasn't called on. And you wonder, is she just one of those eager kids who knows the answer? Or are there consequences for not answering and being able to participate that way? This is a very frightening thing that we're watching behold here. And the uniformity, the uniforms, the school uniforms, all the same. And the thing that really bothers me, this is a Wall Street Journal report. And the narrator they're picked and the music they play is like, like this is something from the Jetsons. This is ominous, this is malicious stuff. And listening to the narrator and listening to the music they picked for this, isn't this just neat? This is the newest thing coming. And not a single suggestion in those videos that there's anything even remotely wrong with any of this stuff.
By the end, it is a little bit better indicator that, oh, this could come to America, kind of like think for yourself. But the whole crux of that entire video is showing exactly what is happening in these Chinese schools, and the fact that that data goes immediately into a chat group of the parents. I mean, that becomes even more so. Every single day, every single assignment that they do has all the kids listed, so they know how their kid is doing compared to the other kids, and what that means for them as a parent, or what it actually, the harm it may mean for that student. Because later in the video, one student says, yeah, if I don't get good grades or good whatever scores, feedback, he gets in trouble. And it was a poor student who was yawning. Again, the yawning.
And you know, besides the Orwellian nature of this and this happy, you will all conform music and narration, which again, I just don't understand, is I will go back to what I said before. Communism. The word communism comes from the word commune, which means communal, which means collective. What does communism, socialism, Marxism, National Socialism, Nazism, what do they all have? And I would argue modern Western progressivism. What do they all have in common? One, they've rejected God utterly. Two, they therefore believe that human beings and human society can be perfected to godlike levels. That human leaders should be treated like gods, government should be treated like gods, Kim Jong-un, anybody? And that government's job is to turn human civilization into heaven. The great Russian writer Dostoevsky warned us about this. He said the biggest problem with these communes and these communists is that they have rejected God. And therefore, they no longer believe that by living a moral life as individuals on this planet, we as individuals could go to the God who made us as individuals when we died. We could get to heaven from earth. No, Dostoevsky says, the modern communist has removed the possibility of God, and therefore all we have is this frail, fallen world full of sin. So what we must do in the absence of God is turn government into God, and to use the power of government to enforce heaven with a bullet in the brain if it's necessary. And that I think Ronald Reagan had a point about this, right? Why is it that free societies like America with individual liberty, why is it that free societies have to use guns to keep people out of their countries? And why is it that countries like China have to use guns to keep people in? It's an important consideration, I think.
On to the next story, where we're going to head to Georgetown University Law School, who is suing the United States, suing the whole country, for not giving coronavirus aid to the children of illegal immigrants. So along with a Villanova law professor named Leslie Book, the Institute for Constitutional Advocacy and Protection Group of Georgetown Law said their complaint challenged the intentional and discriminatory exclusion of U.S. citizen children from receiving emergency assistance based solely on the fact that one or both of their parents are undocumented immigrants.
Wait a second. With all due respect, these checks, this money, are we sending money to children? We're not. We're not. You got a 5 and an 8-year-old at home. Those kids aren't getting checks. I see the point being the adults get it. Those kids aren't spending that money. That money's not being held for those children in bank accounts till they turn 18. This is for the parents to take care of them. And quite frankly, if your parents aren't legal citizens, why should you get that for them? Doesn't make any sense to me. But I got to go a little bit further. Didn't we just hammer Georgetown?
Yes,
we hammered Georgetown a lot. What a fake Christian university this is. Let me ask you a question, Georgetown Law. With all the money you're going to spend on this lawsuit, with all the money and all the time and all the resources you're going to spend suing the federal government over this, how many of your own employees could you have kept on the payroll? Didn't you when we talked about this a couple weeks ago, you furloughed a bunch of people. You're sending them home. You're taking some of the non-tenured faculty and you're throwing them away. You're taking some of your employees and how much money are you spending that you could have used to look after your own people rather than going on wild boar hunting expeditions targeting the federal government? Seems to me that your understanding of Christian values is as warped as what goes on at the regular Georgetown. Just do us a favor. In fact, hey, Jesuits, do us a favor and just leave the Catholic Church altogether and come up with some own church of your own. Call it the Church of Liberalism. You got a pope who's going to go right down that road with you. He's as much of a pagan as you are. He's doing his little parades in the Amazon. He's questioning the divinity of Christ. He's downplaying the idea of hell. You got a pope who's a Jesuit and doesn't really like Christian theology. So Georgetown, change your name.
All right. Well, according to this complaint, the reason that they're filing it is that, the CARES Act, you had to have a social security number because you had to be a citizen. And so they're paying taxes, but they don't have the social security number. And so Leslie Book says, the law is a slap in the face to millions of hardworking, tax-paying immigrants who comply with our tax laws, file tax returns, and pay billions of dollars in taxes. And she added that especially cruel and unjust when so many are struggling to pay for food, rent, and medicine.
Isn't it interesting that these same lawyers who tell us it's our moral obligation to pay these taxes because of the services we get, they don't get them? They might not be getting a check for coronavirus, but they're allowed to use hospital emergency rooms without a charge. They're allowed to go to state universities, even though they technically are not in-state students, and get in-state tuition. I can't do that. I can't apply for college in California and get California tuition. Illegal immigrants can do that. How about you're constantly telling us liberals, right, that these taxes are the cost we pay for everything this wonderful government does for us. And yet, when it comes to illegal aliens who are paying these taxes, right, we've got to make sure that they're getting all of it, right, as if they're not benefiting as if they're not benefiting from the tax structure and what they do way more than average Americans across the country.
Well, it's like somehow racist to say illegal in front of it. So we should just get rid of the word illegal because then
aliens.
They get everything. Okay.
Go back to the documents. Illegal aliens. If you're offended by that, tough.
Whew. Microaggression. So meanwhile, the University of Washington, they're giving all their money to the illegal immigrants during this whole COVID-19 pandemic. The CARES Act doesn't allow for money to be given to illegal immigrants, as we've just learned. But that's not stopping the actual university from giving them money. So they're using this scholarship program and saying, hey, come on. They have 13,000 illegal alien students at the university, and that makes up 3% of the overall nation. And at the same time, just go a little south down to California, the New York Times just reported, because they started their whole coronavirus relief for illegal undocumented, they've crashed the phone lines within a matter of like an hour because so many people are trying to take advantage of this whole thing.
And you notice what's not going to happen, Villanova law professor and Georgetown University? No one's going to sue the University of Washington. No one's going to sue them because resources that were earmarked for Americans aren't going to Americans. And so you can have your cake and eat it too. You'll sue. You won't win, but you'll sue, right? But meanwhile, the rest of us have to watch in states like Washington where American kids are passed over so that illegals can get extra perks and benefits. Think about that.
It's time for some real education. Shakespeare's As You Like It is a charming pastoral comedy written, we believe, in 1599 and first published in the First Folio in 1623. The play highlights themes of appearance versus reality, country life versus city life, and the ultimate folly of love, intellect, and life itself. Perhaps its most famous speech is delivered by the melancholy Jaques, and it is known as the 7 Ages of Man.
And I'm not going to take a lot of time to explain the 7 Ages of Man. It's an older concept. Shakespeare didn't invent it, but it's the idea that every human life ultimately is fit into 7 separate segments. So I'm going to go right to the poem and make sure we can get it covered here. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. We're all actors, Shakespeare says. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. First, the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. Then, the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail, unwillingly to school. And then the lover, sighing like a furnace with a woeful ballad made to his mistress's eyebrow. Then a soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard, jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation, even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice, in fair round belly, with good capon lined, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances, and so he plays his part. The sixth age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side, his youthful hose well saved, a world too wide for his shrunk shank, and his big manly voice turning again towards childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. Last scene of all that ends this strange eventful history is second childishness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. And go back and go to the first slide. Some of the beautiful phraseology here. The first stage is the infant. And what does infancy consist of? Being a little child. Mewling and puking in your nurse's arms. You have no autonomy. You have no intellect. Then the whining schoolboy, right? Scrubbed behind the ears by his mother. Sent off to school in his short pants, right? Whining all the way. Then, right? What comes? Then the lover, right? Sighing, right? And Shakespeare is so beautiful on love here, right? And then the lover, sighing like a furnace, with a woeful ballad made to his mistress's eyebrow. That is such what it's like to be in young love, right? You'll spend hours writing a sonnet about the way her lower lip curls or a twist of one of her hair braids, that kind of over-affected love that Shakespeare pierces all the time. Then the soldier, full of strange oaths, because soldiers swear a lot, right? Cussing and spitting, bearded like a leopard, jealous and honor, sudden and quick to quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation, even in the cannon's mouth, willing to throw his life away for reputation. And you go on to the next clip here. Just some of the beautiful poetic phrases. The next you become the justice, right, where you get good and fat, you have middle age, you have a good fat belly, you eat very well. The sixth age, however, six into the lean and slippered pantaloon. People who can't lose weight when they're younger, when they get to be a certain age, nature does it for them, right? And you begin to waste away. And I love the idea that his big manly voice now becomes full of pipes and whistles in his sound. And the last of all that ends this beautiful phrase, this strange eventful history that we call life, is second childishness and mere oblivion. You're back to mewling and puking in some nursing home bed, right? Beautiful and melancholy reflection.
I guess we'll end right there. As always, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And if you have a question for our Friday Q&A, visit freedomproject.com/askduke or send us a message on social media. But we're going to end today on a high note. Did you know that China literally owns all of the pandas in the entire world? And all the ones in China live in Chengdu. And all of those pandas who are in zoos, scattered about the world, are on loan.
I wonder if there's any other country on Earth that can claim to own a species. Where are the environmentalists on that? You would think, right? And that's going to do it for this show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke and she's Katie. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.